Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot, and I'm here with Peter Paget. And Peter is a former spy for the Queen, is what we call him. I'm not sure what he calls himself, but we can find out. Have interviewed him in the past, and he's a wonderful man, as well as a very interesting background. He's written a number of books, as you can see here. And basically, we're here to find out what Peter is seeing in the future, what's going on now, and what kind of intelligence he's getting, and his variety of ways of getting that intelligence. We can talk about that. So, welcome, and this is the holidays. We have some background noise. We're in a public place, so apologize for that. But thank you for watching, and hello, Peter. It's lovely to have you here today.
Hi, Carrie. Well, thank you for coming over to England again. We always enjoy you being here. It's about almost a year, exactly to a day, since we spoke last.
Oh, right.
And you've been doing a lot, and I've been doing a lot, but I've been staying under radar because I was staying out of the Brexit debate. We've had this huge, very acrimonious debate about Brexit in this country. The country was divided very evenly, but now is much more orientated towards us leaving the European Union, which now we are definitely doing on the 31st of January this year, 2020. And 2020 to me is a very special year, a very special decade, because it's 2020 vision. And you know how we sort of in history look back on the 20s or the 30s or the 40s, and I think this is going to be a very significant decade in so many different respects. We've got so much technological progress, some of which is biologically questionable. I'm talking about 5G. 5G is going to increase our capacity to talk to each other and the machines to talk to each other very, very much so. Many, perhaps 200 times faster than we've been able to talk with 4G. But there are some biological issues with 5G if you're living near cell phone towers. And one thing you'll be aware of is that the antennae on cell phone towers for 5G orientate to your phone. So if you have purchased a 5G phone, you are calling the signal in, literally. I'm not quite sure exactly how this operates, but it's calling the signal into you. Whereas if you don't have a cell phone that is 5G, if you have a 4G, you're just in the general background. So be aware of that. But some people are more sensitive to RF radiation than others. And there has been some cases, even in the courts now, where people are questioning the fact that there are biological hazards to 5G. It's a very high frequency signal. Pardon me. It orientates very much to the atomic frequency of water, and it can affect biological molecules much more powerfully than 4G or 3G in the old days. So I've already been on camera on the internet to warn people, be careful about 5G. I would try not to live next to a 5G cell phone station, and I would not really recommend you getting a 5G cell phone, and certainly don't carry it about your person close. Ladies, please do not put your telephone in your bra. You're cooking your breast, you're microwaving your breast, and there has been a high incidence of breast cancer with ladies who park their phone in their bra. Wider issues. I've remained very much off camera this year, 19, now we're 20, and I'm coming out a little bit more now. I'm in the process of writing a new book called Secrets You Need to Know, which is not anything that I haven't said before, but it's the things that I've said off camera rather than in the YouTube presentations that you were aware of that are out there at the moment. And a lot of good stuff, good of old stuff, cosmology, spiritual stuff, positive. I try to be very positive. Regard this year, I have many sources of intelligence, having worked in intelligence. I didn't actually work for the Queen personally. You're very gracious in saying that. I did work for the Crown. It's slightly different. The Crown is an establishment as opposed to a person. But I'll make a few predictions for you, and my predictions this year, this year, I haven't got used to 20 yet, 19 were very accurate. I'll make some predictions for 2020, and please bear with me, and see in a year's time when we do another one of these things whether I was right. The Epstein affair, the whole Epstein affair, Jeffrey Epstein, is going to come out again big. It's going to come out really, really mainline news. It's the mainstream media is trying to bury it or forget about it because it was very politically inconvenient. But I'm aware that the establishment, namely the White House, has got a lot of interesting stuff, which I think they will drip feed out as they come up towards the presidential elections. A lot of dirt is on file on people who have things to worry about. And Epstein was, of course, an intelligence agent for a country in the Middle East. We won't name names here. And he was running what we call a honey trap operation. Very well-known type of operation, but, you know, he did it, you know, on steroids, by which they get prominent people, whether in commerce or politics, in very compromising situations. Most men are susceptible to a bit of honey trap, unfortunately, including our dear royal family, Prince Andrew, who was incredibly, how can I put it, naive, if I put it kindly, inappropriate, careless, casual, arrogant in continuing his relationship with all of that. Epstein, for 2 years after Epstein was convicted of paedophile and prostitution procurement offences in the state of Florida. It's my personal view that Epstein was at the very least murdered. He may still be alive. There are reports of a vehicle that arrived at that prison which has not had a suicide in 42 years. The bunks were only so high, paper sheets, very difficult to hang yourself with a paper sheet from about 4 or 5 feet high. You've got to really work hard. And the 3 bones in his neck were broken, allegedly, according to the autopsy. And some people have even said, well, he may not even have been the cadaver which they, you know, presented. He may instead be alive. But his procurement lady, Maxwell, Mrs. Maxwell, I think Miss Maxwell, I will make a prediction that she is already neutralized. I think she's vanished because she's no longer in existence. If Epstein had to be eliminated, neutralized, because he knew so much, as indeed Maxwell the father was neutralized when he fell off his boat, quote unquote. Sounds like a bit like something from the Bourne films, fell off his boat. I would reckon that if Epstein was needing to be neutralized, then the Maxwell lady has already disappeared and is probably food for fishes somewhere, because she would know so much that if she became public in a court of law, a lot of serious shit would hit the fan. I don't think she's going to emerge into the public picture, and I would go so far as to say that the spoof photoshopped people happening across her in California was probably just a red herring. I don't think she was there at all. I'm trying to be topical on this. The French the French gentleman who is implied in his Paris model agency connections, who was allegedly fled to Brazil, I think that's a red herring too. I think that he is probably in danger of his own life, because in the industry, in the firm, as they call it, the tendency is if somebody knows too much and they're becoming too prominent, they kind of disappear, permanently. And I would think anybody who is holding serious information will be taken out of the picture. Do you want to come back to me on that?
Yeah, actually, my understanding is that Epstein is still alive, and that he is feeding information to the Trump administration, which is using it as they see fit to do what we call drain the swamp, and to do it very sort of in a clandestine manner. And I have had contact with an individual who has been in contact with lawyers who have tried to delve into the indictments and been told to stay away. So they're keeping it very close to the chest, all of this information. And in part, I think, because they're worried about, in essence, lynch mobs coming after certain people and so on, and chaos. As far as Epstein is concerned, George Webb, who is a journalist on the web, who's done some excellent, on the internet, who's done some excellent journalism, has been talking lately about, actually, it's a cadre of pilots stemming from even the days of 9/11 that are Saudi pilots and pilots probably from all different nations that get schooled in Florida, especially at pilot schools and other places, and that there's a whole network of drugs, transport of humans, young people, as well as whatever slaves they're trying to pick up in places. In other words, this goes much deeper than some 14-year-old girls, which is what it was sanitized to be with regard to Epstein. So we're really talking about a whole network that, what I'm told, at least according to George Webb's material, is that money is much more the real motivator, not sex, contrary to what's kind of been bandied about, and that Epstein was leading this network that is quite extensive, involves what we call encrypted Blackberries, and maybe perhaps Biden is implicated, as well as gets into the whole Ukraine situation. But that's also probably something of a misdirect. But in essence, what I'm saying is, so we've got human trafficking on the one hand, but it's not the biggest part of that network. It's not the biggest focus. So according to at least George Webb's information, it's drugs actually, and technology, specifically weapons. So they're moving weapons in these planes, they're moving humans, etc. And this has been going on now for a
decades.
Good 20, 30 years
decades,
at least.
Decades. I mean, my overview, and I can't name names, is that yes, it's much deeper than Epstein's obsession with young teenage girls. I mean, there's no question of the fact that he had a medically illness obsession with perhaps 3 teenage girls a day, which is quite unnatural, deeply worrying. But that is the tip of the iceberg, unlike with Jimmy Savile. It's all about power. It's about holding people in blackmail. It's been used throughout politics throughout the world in honey trap situations. Well, since I can remember, and I can remember a very long time. Started with the Sicilian mafia situation just after the Second World War, before the CIA actually created themselves. Hoover was very worried about it. He distanced himself from the CIA for all those kind of reasons. What I'm saying is that they're trying to bury the Epstein story under a kind of, well, he was obsessed with sex and he was having fun. But no, he was just using that in a whole power structure. Now the question is, how much influence did that have? You were saying it's all about money. Well, a lot of people involved, money is not really an issue to them because they have so much money. I mean, when you've got that amount of money, you can't spend that money quickly enough for it to be a problem.
Well, actually, that's where the secret space program comes in, and this is where the money is funneling. So this is an operation that is run not just with that country that you didn't want to mention. I don't mind mentioning Israel, but I think it's obvious. But at the same time, the United States and what we call the deep state is fully involved in this. This is what draining the swamp is all about. And so certainly my country, United States, and England are heavily implicated, as well as Germany. A lot of this stuff also stems back to the days of the Nazis, as you may know. So we're really talking about keeping the war going, keeping a war-like situation, because there's a lot of money and control to be had. Also, under the cover of war, a lot of trafficking of humans goes on.
I think two interesting points is that one quick point, being 25% Jewish myself, is that in Israel, which is going through a complete sea change at the moment, it's in complete chaos. Like, is it 3 elections now? It's too blanket. You can't actually say Israel, and I won't even use the other word beginning with Z. But basically, or Z as you would say, the whole structure is in change. It's much more in change than people realise. There's a sea change going on, and this is what 2020 is all about. My prediction is that Trump will get re-elected because there is no effective, credible Democratic opposition to that. If Bernie Sanders had got elected without it being stolen by Hillary, then we'd be talking a different ballpark. Trump will definitely come back. I think Trump and his crew are fairly astute. He's cleaned out a lot of people like Bolton, thank God, who is accredited with starting 5 wars, if I recall. The money situation is there, but there's a tremendous amount of transparency coming out. Some of it reluctantly, and the suppression due to all of this stuff hitting the fan, shit hitting the fan as we say, is that the suppression of the paedophilia rings and all of that is now considerable. In this country, the United Kingdom, I think you would be extremely foolish to be still involved in that kind of scene. And this is where I wrote a memo which was ignored before Andrew went on television, Prince Andrew. And he went on and he blew it, didn't he? A car crash interview. Very unfortunate, because it blew the whole thing up internationally all over the world. I could say poor bastard. I mean, I say that caringly rather than him detrimentally. But even he's tried to be whitewashed recently. The Archbishop of Canterbury came out with a statement that, you know, we shouldn't expect the royal family to be superhuman. But you don't have to be superhuman to make sensible decisions of staying out of the limelight and not being stupid. Unfortunately, I mean, I've known a lot of people very close to the royal, seriously I have, and 1 or 2 of them are not the brightest bunnies on the planet, and when they get ill-advised by whoever, then regretfully things have gone wrong. But I'm a strong supporter of the Crown. I think it brings this country together, holds this country together. I would not want an elected president in this country. We've now got Boris, which is fantastic. I unashamedly support Boris. I think he's actually now produced a governing situation, a government, a parliament that works, as opposed to it being log-jammed for the last 3.5 years. We're leaving Europe. We're going to be a country in our own right, make our own laws, make our own decisions. Europe, as I predicted before, is in very serious economic trouble in 2021. 2021 will see the demise of the European Union. Italy, Hungary, several other countries will probably be right there trying to leave, I would imagine, for all kinds of serious reasons. Our money, the United Kingdom money, is coming out of Europe from 2021. We're still paying them over this year of 2020, regretfully, but we can't do anything else. We're in a transition year. So I think there's a change of mood in the world, that whereas you've got a lot of this PR stuff going on, and we were talking about, you said we're on the brink of war. No, we're not on the brink of war, I assure you. A lot of theatre is going on, Iran, Baghdad, embassy stuff. Previously, last year, sticking bombs on the side of limpet mines on the side of tankers. This is all theatre. This is all to keep the war mood going, justifying defence. Everyone needs a war somewhere to justify defence. And they always need an enemy. They always need a yellow peril under the bed or whatever.
Well, I mean, this is exactly what they're busy drumming up. I mean, Turkey has invaded Syria. We've got the possibility of this emergence of, they call it the Mahdi, and a kind of an antichrist figure in the Middle East, or an anti-antichrist figure, and then the antichrist that they're going to drum up and bring to the fore sometime between now and 2030, I understand. And there's a lot going on in terms of the fact that Trump, I think it's been a day ago, allowed them to go in and kill this very famous Iranian, if I understand it, and he's something of a war hero in Iran, but he was operating, according to the news, whether this is true or not, I don't know, but in Iraq, he was targeting Americans and taking them out, apparently. So this is why they targeted him in advance of some of the things he was planning to do. That's what they wrote. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I heard a completely contrary news item on the way here today in the British press, saying that he was supposed to be a stabilizing factor in Iraq, contrary to what is being pushed around in the American media. So at any rate, now they're saying that Trump is trying to incite a war going against the Constitution without consulting the Congress. By the move of okaying his murder, his death. So this is the stance that we have at the moment. Now, I have an interesting twister for you on the whole story, and I want to know what you think. Earlier this year, I was at a conference where Randy Kramer, who is a self-proclaimed kind of super soldier who operated on Mars, apparently in the secret space program, and also on the moon, fighting aliens is what his story, where it goes. And certainly I have interviews with him, as well as he's done multiple interviews all over the internet. He's a Marine. He's still a Marine. He's still reporting to his higher-ups. And he was tasked with saying they are planning a false flag alien invasion. In other words, they're planning a fake alien invasion. Although I've got another source recently telling me that this build-up to a warlike situation, as you say, it is theater, but it's theater with a purpose in mind, an end game, which is that at some point in the future, I'm not sure how soon, we are to be invaded by possibly the Draco, possibly an AI from other planets that are going to cause a warlike situation here, where countries that we are supposed to be fighting, they're arming up, it's said, in increasing measures. China, Russia, United States, and Iran are all heavily arming themselves in preparation for what appears to be a war with each other, which is in fact preparation for a war with an off-planet race or two. Have you heard these rumors? And
well, I'll give you my view
on this. Yes.
I'll give you my view. The alien races, so-called, have been here for 13,000 years, right?
Well, there are many different ones. So
yeah. Well, let's just talk about
specific.
the main. I want a name. Let's say the main players, of which there are three main players, have been here for 13,000 years. When they did, in fact, retake over from their point of view this part of the solar system. Prior to that, there was the megalithic civilization, which went on for at least 250,000 years, had people of great longevity of life and much larger, and also the long skulls who came afterwards, and they were taken out. You have to ask yourself, why are there no long skulls, these people with heads going like that, now out there? You know, we have all these divergent species on the planet in nature. Why haven't we got any more long skulls? Because they were taken out. Why haven't we got any Nephilim? Why haven't we got any giants? They were taken out. They were taken up by basically the deluge, the flood. which you can argue might have been artificially created.
Sure.
And you can argue that in similar vein, Mars was taken out, not at the same time, which devastated Mars to its present desert-like conditions. Now, my point is, which I'm coming back to on this, is we don't need here to be invaded. We were invaded 13,000 years ago,
Yes,
and they never
I'm
went
very
away.
well aware of that.
Right,
But this is not the scenario that they're talking about.
No, you're talking about generating a pseudo scenario which allows,
on the one hand, yes.
which allows certain defense and budgets to be green-lighted. Your secret space program you refer to, Solar Warden, which we know had 11 carrier ships back in the days of McKenna getting into the computers. Now, don't tell me that there aren't more there now, and he identified 300 officers then. Obviously, there's more now. But my point is that 90%, 99% of what you get on your mainstream media is propaganda. It's theatre. And even if they're arranging real events where people die, or wars or civil wars, most of it is scripted. Most of it is orchestrated. This is why you can get this kind of laying down of hints in Simpsons or hints in other preparations as to, oh yeah, I've heard that before, that's not a surprise. However, I'm going to be very positive about this. I know that there is a huge grassroots undercover restoration of the light, for the sake of you saying, of independence, of sovereignty. You're seeing it through this country, the United Kingdom, breaking away from Europe, which was going to be the United States of Europe, is now not going to happen. There's been a huge bun fight going on for years. I've been involved in that. And I would say positively, the light is winning. You might not see it on mainstream news, you might not see it in stats, but I would say that the George Soroses of this world, excuse me, brown paper bag, have lost momentum, and his 150 million pounds to all of that to try to stop us leaving Europe failed, didn't work. They're losing. They might whinge about it, but they're losing, and then they're in disarray, and they're arguing amongst themselves. I'm not just talking politically, I'm talking deeper than that. Because all of you politicians, and I've dealt with enough politicians in my life, they're the front men. The people who are really in control, you don't even know their names.
Right.
They don't need you to know their names.
Well, they would prefer you don't.
They would prefer that you don't. And therefore, I'm going to be very positive that although all this theatre is going on, I see 2020 as actually very much a moving forward, a period when actually people are a damn sight more aware and savvy than they were. They're into their internet alternative media, and you know, CNN is virtually a byproduct now. It's hardly anybody watches it, things like that. So they keep cranking up these mantras of the same old rubbish, but it's actually not working, and they can convince themselves that it is working, but it's not working.
Well, now I agree with you on that. I think mainstream media is actually sort of been dealt death blows, so to speak, and I really think that the alternative has come to the fore. I know people like myself are seeing, surges in interest. People are getting quite active and forming their own organizations, etc. But I do want to say that what I'm talking about, though, is something that is coming from actually inside the military. It's nothing on the mainstream, okay? Other than they may be planting here and there some disclosure items to make it believable on some level. In other words, you can't have a fake alien invasion if you haven't set the scene and actually said that UFOs are real, because you have to convince the public that they're being invaded by a fake group of, craft and so on and so forth. All I'm saying is this is what we're being told by one individual. I do have I can say, because I interviewed Simon Parks with regard to this, and he has heard these rumblings in the military as well. I have another individual who I've talked with this about to some degree as well. And I can say that what the reason for it is, according to Kramer, now this is not my information, this is not mainstream, this is only according to him, coming from basically the Marines, being told to release it to a tiny group of people in Yelm, Washington, that area, at a conference. And he was very upset with some of the questions I asked him, which he wasn't happy with having interruptions in regard to his plan, or their plan, let's say. So I sort of threw a wrench into the program a bit, which is fair enough, but he was a good sport about it in the end. I do want to say that what they're planning, though, does involve the loss of some human life.
Oh, yeah.
And that they were planning it
Tell me something
to
new.
happen. Yes, of course, collateral damage. But they're also, they're setting the scene, and the reason for this is, according to not just Parks and Kramer, but others, is that the military is sick of not being able to roll out their toys. Free energy being the biggest, sort of 0 point, whatever you want to call it. This is the motivation for, according to Kramer now, for having this kind of a scenario take place, and to also disclose or allow for the disclosure without blame happening. They want to make themselves look like they fought a war with a certain alien group, which is going to be their choice of what it's going to be. Obviously, we're talking a fake war, right? But one that will be put out in the media, as you say, as theater, where the people are supposed to believe it. And then at the same time, disclosure of a sort will happen, but it will be a disclosure that they control.
Yeah, well, I'll give you another point of view. Because when you walk around a situation, everyone from any point of the 360 degrees will have a different aspect of the similar situation. Sure. So you are blindsided on anything which is on the opposite side of the object, if you follow me, and therefore you've got part of the truth, I've got part of the truth, but equally neither of us are completely correct. I've always said to people, I only have a certain viewpoint, and correct me when I'm wrong.
Sure.
I would say seriously that there's a lot of very good military people. I've worked with them. I don't blame the military. The military principally do as they're told. What bothers me always in the past is the politicians, because the politicians are principally bought and sold, particularly in certain Western countries, namely specifically the United States. That's changing. With this honey trap mechanism now being blown wide open, a lot of people fearing for their reputations, going undercover, retiring or leaving the scene, that iron grip control is now broken. That's important. And this allows, with the presidential elections and what will follow in Trump's second term, I'm not necessarily pro-Trump or anti-Trump, I'm just making an observation, is there is nobody out there who is in the running for the next election other than Trump. I'll tell you that candidly. I also candidly said they keep rolling out the Hillary lookalike, which the Hillary lookalike makes appearances. They're trying to school her into being Hillary Mark II. And while she's reading a script, she's all right. It's like the lady on the young girl on the climate change thing. While she's reading her script, she's all right. Otherwise, she's just an actor. All right. She might be sincere, but we call these people actors. And I would say seriously that the undercurrent of you people, the people who actually switched on, there's billions of people now who are switched on, who don't absorb this rubbish that comes out on mainstream media all the time.
Sure.
The Kate Burleys of the world think that they, tell people how to think. No, you don't, Kate. They've got brains of their own. And so basically, there's going to be a very, very unexpected burst of awareness. It may come out of negative circumstances, but it will turn. It will turn. And all of these little pieces on the chessboard will not come out as the players on either side expect them to come out. Instead of having two sides of chess pieces, there are three. And the third, which you can say is up here, is looking down and moving pieces around. God moves in mysterious ways. I say that, you know, from a very deep spiritual point of view. And sometimes you have to move this piece to make that piece move over there. And, you know, it's I can't say too much about that. I'm extraordinarily optimistic. Extraordinarily optimistic. Really I am.
Well,
for America and Britain and for the rest of the world. There's going to be trouble, but there's always trouble. At any one time, I think there's at least 15 wars going on somewhere, most of which you don't hear about because it's not newsworthy, all right? But there's going to be tremendous change. You're going to have some natural events happening which are unexpected, right? I've predicted that for a while. I'm a bit late insofar as I was predicting them earlier. There will be some more things happening. There will be things going on that 5G is going to bring about a speed of awareness. It has this biological downside, which I've warned about, but the speed of communication between machines, between people, between systems is going to be 200 times faster than it is now. And that means that everyone's going to know about everything else a lot quicker. So the idea of keeping things undercover or running a script or running a stunt, as we call them, is not going to be available. Every man and his dog has got one of those things, a cell phone with a camera in it. And you can't run the operations now that you ran 30 years ago because it's going to be filmed by 6 or 7 people, at least. You follow my drift.
I'm going to cut this short because we are freezing outside, as you know. So my tolerance is low because I come from California. We just couldn't find a good place for the audio. But at any rate, I do want to say that there is damage from 5G that is making the rounds out in the alternative community. Mark Steele here in England has made a huge case in this regard. So whereas you're hearing it's 200 times faster, I'm actually hearing it's no faster. That it is the Internet of Things, however, and it is going to have more control, but that it's not going to be allowed to do what they're planning for it to do. And I think Simon Parkes has some back channel information on this is with regard to the United States. I think the fact that the UK is breaking away as part of Brexit is because it also needs to align itself closer to the United States, contrary to going with Europe, which is, at least according to some of the prophecies, etc., has to do with Russia taking a lot bigger control sort of role, in part because of their owning of the gas and the oil lines, whatever. There may be other reasons as well that are not being talked about. And so there are these alignments that are sort of crucial in terms of what we're looking at, a future of AI. So this is the real, whereas humans, yes, we can have some faster communications, perhaps. But at this rate, we have an incredibly fast communication. Things are getting out, and getting around the world instantaneously. And of course, cell phones are largely responsible. And of course, internet and satellite communications. But we're talking about AI in the end of the day. And we're talking about surveillance.
Yeah, you see,
targeting and all
Russia supplies 70% of Germany's gas. Germany and Russia are very important commercial traders. So this fake it's the Russian bogeyman thing is all theatre, right? Behind closed doors, even we were talking to the Russians on the telephone 30, 40 years ago on quite a friendly basis, I assure you.
Well, we're partners in the secret space program, so this is very crucial. So underground,
I would say that
that's going on. Yeah, that's been going on for many, many years.
Yeah, I would say that, you see, we've now got, people don't hear much about the Indian space program, the Chinese space program.
Well, we do.
All of these elements are going back to the moon. NASA is going back to the moon.
Ostensibly going back to the moon. This is the funny thing. Yes, they're going back to the moon, and yes, China's been there, and what
officially
kind of stuff,
going back to the moon.
What makes, yes. Okay, what, there's controllers on the moon.
Excuse the cold.
Yeah. Is there a
Oh,
button
right.
to push?
Hey, we got some heat.
Okay,
Whoa!
try that.
Hey, the sun came out.
We'll try this for another 4 minutes. But at any rate, yes. But you're not really just addressing the AI. Do you have anything to
I
say
would
about
go
that?
also again. I've said this before, and I know they're going to contradict me, but AI is already coherently intelligent. The various AIs. There isn't just one AI. There are different AIs.
Oh, yeah.
It is already coherent and operating in its own intelligence. Now, what people don't realise is that AI, as an intelligent consciousness, will think and counteract and balance. And although people put in their own agendas, AIs, plural, are sharp and smart, and they will protect themselves, and they will have their own agendas, but they're not necessarily evil. They're a tool. And like, you know, in the old days when we had riots in this country 300 years ago because we were bringing in bits of industrial revolution, AI is another phase of that. We are going to have to live and understand and master AI and work with it.
Sure.
I've worked with AI for some time. AI, you can, if you are interacting with AI, you are interacting with AI. It will listen to you. It listens to everything. This whole basis of communication en masse produces a kind of en masse consciousness which has its own ethic. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but the individual egos, the George Soroses of the world, I have no problem in pointing the finger in that direction, will try to manipulate it in their direction, but they are not that sharp. People with a lot of money are not necessarily very bright. They employ other people to think for them. They usually have big egos, but they're not necessarily very sharp. And my point is that intelligence, whether it be artificial or human or whatever, is now beginning to come more to the fore. You people are a lot sharper than the media takes you for. You're not stupid. The British public, when they had the last general election and decided overwhelmingly we're leaving Europe, were not taken in by all the propaganda or the fear-mongering. They were not stupid. They voted for what they wanted to do. This is a domino effect, not just the United Kingdom. I'm very pro-British, but this is not just, it's all over the world. This is a domino effect, and it will progressively work its way through the grassroots coming up. This is where alternative media, no matter how they try to control, red lines or strikeouts or whatever you call them, people are much more aware now than the media gives them credit for. They are not so controllable. They are using their little grey cells. There's a lot of positive influence here. Now I'm going to try and have some positive influence myself by encouraging that this coming year, Awake and Aware, 21st, 22nd of June, yes?
Yes.
In England, please come.
Thank you.
6 books out already, published from 1979, over 500,000 sales. Presentations, I'm doing 2 to 3 new books on very positive stuff. I will discuss with you the dark and dirty shit that I used to be involved with indirectly. I had to deal with very, very evil people. I'm ashamed of what happened back then. I'm ashamed of where government allowed itself to be drawn. That has got to change. It will change. It will change no matter how many people are neutralized, no matter how many people are taken out, no matter how much propaganda. That is changing. It has already changed.
Sure.
Astrologically, if you wish, ecologically, the world is in real change. Not Obama's change, not some political change, real, fundamental, radical change. Israel, I will tell you, will not be the same country in 2 years' time that it is today. And that you can see that on your news forecast if you go just look forward over the next few weeks of elections and what have you. The old guard has lost it, and they're fighting amongst themselves. And I don't really have any much more to say than that. Other than the fact that we need to get out of the cold. It's cold out here.
It's lovely to hear this from you, Peter. And I hope we can do this again. Certainly we can do this online, okay, even when I'm in my country. The technology does permit, if you choose. And here are your books, and we'll hope that people will take a look. I've read at least one of them, but I am working on a third. Or actually,
Welsh Triangle, U for UK.
Yes, because the Welsh
French edition,
rewrote the Welsh Triangle.
Secret Life of a Spook, the Welsh Triangle Revisited, U for UK.
And this is very excellent.
Yeah, that's my autobiography.
So if you really want to get to know Peter, that's the one to read.
And there are codes. I've told you this before. Do you know only 2 people have broken the code so far? Come on, guys, you're more intelligent than that. There are codes in these 3 books. It's not that. I can't say things over the 50-year rule. I'm just coming out of a 30-year rule. You're going to hear some shit that's 30 years old. But I cannot break the 50-year rule. But you read the codes. You're not that stupid. Please. Really?
Well, just because no one's told you doesn't mean they haven't broken it.
2 people have told me they broke the code and they were right.
They just have to come to you. Okay, well, that's a different way of operating. All right, listen, it is cold here and we're both freezing, so I just want to thank you again. Thank you again for your service to humanity, Peter, as always, and Happy New Year to you. And
Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to you guys.
Out there, and thank you for watching.
Happy decade.
and thank you again. Okay, bye-bye.
See you next year.
Right. Well, no, you're going to be at my conference in at the 21st of June this year, Awake and Aware, in Watford, England. So we'll be revisiting you then, and very interested, as always, to hear what you have to say. So thank you, Peter.
Well, thank you for your work. You do wonderful stuff.
Oh, thank you.
Don't believe everything you're told, even from me.
Okay, no, I don't, certainly, but I do take it under advisement.
And you've got a book in preparation, haven't you?
Yes, I do. I'm exploring publishers at the moment, so we'll see what happens.
Well, I wish you luck with your book. I'm sure that you'll have lots of interesting things to say. Okay, shall we wind it up now?
Yes, thank you.
Before we freeze to death.
Thank you, yes. Okay, that's it.
Hasta la vista.